I know a lot of Jet fans are sitting here today, and they're so excited that the season is just around the corner. And maybe it was because of the great draft, adding guys like Johnson and Wilson, and not Zach Wilson. I'm talking about Garrett Wilson, or Sauce Gardner, or Breece Hall, or Clemens, or Mitchell. I don't know. What surprises you more about this regime? Is it Robert Saleh's second year with a better defense, with a more mobile defense at the edges, with a Carl Lawson and now a Jermaine Johnson? Or maybe is the secondary now with Reed and Gardner and obviously Bryce Hall? Or maybe it's the running back core that they have now with Breece Hall and Michael Carter Jr. To me, when you look at this Jets team, it's all about the trenches. It's all about this offensive line and how they work together. And it's going to be very important for this defensive line to put pressure on quarterbacks, especially in the AFC, where they're loaded when it comes to star quarterbacks.
And they're loaded when it comes to mobility with a lot of the young quarterbacks that they're going to have to play against, too. Not even just in the AFC East, but you have Josh Allen, then you got Lamar Jackson, you got Joe Burrow, you got guys that are mobile, too. So they got speed off the edges in order to deal with that. And with the secondary depth they have now, too, they could try to use those guys in run-type defense roles, too. Extra safeties, extra corners. We saw the Chargers do that in a playoff game against the Ravens in order to contain Lamar Jackson. And the Jets, with the secondary depth they have now, have the ability to do that kind of thing, too, especially with the speed they have off the edges. The linebackers, we'll see if they have the same kind of effect. C.J. Mosley's not as fast as he used to be, but still pretty fast. And there's also some rumors of Kwon Alexander, too. So if they could bring him in, that would be really something as well. One of the best tackling fast linebackers in the league, and can cover a little, too.
Absolutely, and I think that's the weakest part of the Jets' defense is their linebacking core. Now, obviously, they brought Quincy Williams in, Quentin Williams' brother, who played very well last year. C.J. Mosley had a fantastic year. So I think that when you look at the Jets right now, the question is, what is this offense going to be under Zach Wilson? Now you have Corey Davis. You have Elijah Moore. Now you have Garrett Wilson. You have star-ass running backs like Breece Hall or Michael Carter. That's what you want to see. You want to see a significant powerhouse offensive team that we have not seen this Jets team be, even in the Rex Ryan years. So, Speedy, you look at this team and you look at the dynamics of it, and you look at Mike LaFleur and you look at Robert Saleh. What stands out to you, as exciting as the Jets' offseason has been, what stands out to you from all the acquisitions they made?
The ability to do multiple types of game plans now. They don't have to be just one type of team. They don't have to rely on just Zach Wilson running because they had all those running backs injured last year. They don't have to be just a 3-receiver set team, or when they weren't a 3-receiver set team with all the injuries against the Buccaneers and when they had the COVID issues in the middle of the season, they could rely now on tight ends. They didn't have to rely on scrap heap Ryan Griffin and Chris Herndon and guys of years past. They got legitimate tight ends to do that kind of thing too. We saw Mike LaFleur's offense in San Francisco revolve around a lot around the two tight ends. Now, granted, they have George Kittle, and the Jets might not have a George Kittle on the roster, but even when Kittle was hurt, they still used other different tight ends. They brought in Jordan Reed one year, Ross Dwelly. They had other guys that worked. But they also could be a wide receiver type team, too. They could play the Sean McVay type offense, which was where LaFleur originally learned from. They could use the bunch formations they like to do with Garrett Wilson now. Hopefully, Corey Davis plays a little better than he did last year, but still, again, second year of a system, might have had trouble getting used to it. Elijah Moore could play all over the place. So there's a lot of options to just not have to play just one type of offense. And that is the new wave of today's game. Keep them thinking, have different types of players. The Jets aren't just one team of all small receivers or all small running backs. They have size, they have speed, they have versatility, a good combination of everything now, if the play calling is creative enough and not like what Mike LaFleur did in the first half of last season. And that's going to be up to him and up to these position coaches to get the best out of those players as well.
Absolutely, and that's why going into the season, do I think the Jets are going to be a contending Super Bowl team? No. I think they're 1 year away.
Yeah.
You want to see growth of Zach Wilson. You want to see Zach Wilson take that next step, and he obviously put on some muscle in the offseason. That's good news because he looked like a stick going into the season last year. Might lose a little bit of speed, but strong arm and a guy that's mobile that can move inside and out of the pocket as good as he can. I'm very interested to see what Zach Wilson is going to be moving forward this year, as accurate as he was in the second half of the season. As far as the Giants are concerned, I know a lot of people are questioning some of the moves that they made at the draft. They had a great first round. They added Kayvon Thibodeau, who fits very well with the New York Giants. Evan Neal, who is arguably the best offensive tackle in this year's draft, before we heard some of the knee problems that he had throughout the last couple of seasons. But nevertheless, the second half of their draft was not very good. But you know what's really exciting if you are a Giant fan right now is their head coach. And I'll tell you this right now. When you look at a head coach, you want to see a head coach that has swag. You look at Robert Saleh, he has swag. He works out with the players. He's always in there at 5 o'clock in the morning lifting with the players. What I love about this guy, Daboll, I love that the way he dresses. He wears his Jordan suits. He wears his Jordan sneakers. He goes out there. He has some kind of swag to him. And that's good for the Giants because they haven't had swag in a very long time. The last time they had swag was with an angry Tom Coughlin. And that wasn't swag. That was just an anger amongst the team and individuals.
It's also still the most energy you'll ever see out of an old man ever.
Absolutely. So when you look at this team, you look at the Giants as a whole, trying to figure this team out, you can really figure out this team through their coaching. They have Wink, and I call him Mr. Wink because of what he did with the Baltimore Ravens. Now you're bringing in a guy that actually knows defensive patterns. He understands the way to play defense. He's one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. And then you bring in a guy like Daboll, who is very well respected around the league, helped Josh Allen become the quarterback that he is, and maybe can help and solidify a quarterback that's been there for a couple of years that really hasn't defined himself as a quarterback in the NFL, Speedy.
Yeah, you wonder, too, what kind of concepts that he'll bring, because Josh Allen and Daniel Jones, when it comes to the mobility factor, are very similar. Now, Daniel Jones isn't the big body like Josh Allen is, where he's going to be that difficult to take down, but Daniel Jones has rushed very well in certain games. He's been elusive at escaping pressure, and he had to really be tested on that. The first 3 years of his career, the Giants have had all terrible offensive lines, and that included Andrew Thomas in the first half of his rookie season when he couldn't pass protect for anything. So Daniel Jones, mentally, we'll have to see how he can grow in that, and the concept, I think, now they could use him more in rollout type things. They have not the receiving depth, but they have the play caller that will actually spread guys out and not do these basic formations like you saw Jason Garrett do and previous offensive coordinators that Daniel Jones has had, where it seems like very old school. The Bills, yeah, they don't have the greatest arsenal of like receiving depth like a team like the Rams does or anything like that, but you saw Buffalo utilize concepts with guys like Isaiah McKenzie, who were considered a gadget player punt returner. Maybe the Giants can get the best out of Kadarius Toney in using him in that kind of role. The second round pick in Wan'Dale Robinson, I didn't like it, but they might use him in that type of thing too. The Giants are going to have to make that kind of thing work because they don't have the star power of that offense. They have to trust the scheme to make a leap this year and trust the star power they have on the defense. They still have some left. I know they cut James Bradbury, who naturally signs with the Eagles like every other NFC East player loves to do. Just go to another team. Why not? But the offense is where the coaching specialty is. And if Daboll can get the best out of that, both from play calling and a culture perspective, the Giants offense, it's not going to be great, but it's at least going to be serviceable where it can score some points.
I think the Giants are going to be fun to watch this year, especially with the schedule the way it is. This is a winnable schedule for the New York Giants. Now, I don't know if they're going to win 10 games or 11 games.
No.
But they could be a borderline playoff team, especially as weak as the NFC East is going to be this year. The Eagles look like they're the best team in that division. On paper, they stand out. Adding a big-time receiver as they did at the draft, and then adding some of the defensive players they added in the draft this year, they're really going to stand out. But I think the Giants, even with the Cowboys and the Washington Commanders are in that division, I think the Giants could really compete with those teams. The Cowboys have lost a lot of significant players in the offseason. And Washington, even though they added a quarterback, Carson Wentz, they're a team that really is trying to figure out their identity. So I think the Giants know who they are, and I think Daboll, with the weapons that they're going to bring to the table and who they are as an organization and a team, it's going to be very interesting to see what Daboll is going to command at the quarterback position and what he's going to demand when it comes to that offensive line with now the lead anchors of Evan Neal and obviously Thomas. I think that could solidify the offense and where the offense is going, especially the running game and the wide receiving core that they're going to be bringing and putting on the field.
Whenever you have a mobile quarterback and want to be able to utilize rollout concepts, designed bootlegs, designed play action type concepts, you need two tackles that could do that. The best way to contain an outside rushing quarterback, except for Russell Wilson, for whatever reason, struggles more against interior. But beyond that, You need outside rushing guys that can rush the passer. Now, if you have two tackles that are as good as Thomas and what Neal could be, then you're going to have that kind of thing where Daniel Jones isn't going to be running for his life and then takes all these bad sacks, these 15-yard sacks, and then fumbles a lot. That's always been the biggest problem in his career so far, has been sensing pressure on his own. Now, some of that is him, some of it's the offensive line. Most of it, I would say, is the offensive line, but at least if they could reduce that with that kind of thing with these two tackles, if they develop the way they should, it's going to improve a lot. As far as the division, I would say talent-wise, they're still last, but again, if the coaching is there right away, where Daboll is that new school coach over some old school coaches that Ron Rivera and Mike McCarthy maybe haven't brought right away to their respective teams, they could be the second team in that division if that's the case. I think Washington probably still, I would favor them as the second team because, yes, Dallas did lose a lot, but Carson Wentz is always hurt. Their offense is still very questionable too, like the Giants. So that's going to be the battle there. But if Daboll brings that new school mentality and get them going right away, even if they don't win enough games to make the playoffs, at least to get second in the division, that could definitely be a big leap. It's still going to be hard for make the playoffs with the South still having some good teams, with the Saints improving the way they did. Panthers, we'll see on them. They're not a great offense, but they still have a good overall roster. And the West, too, we know is loaded, too. Assuming that the 49ers and Cardinals resolve their offensive situations, they're still going to be dangerous teams as well.
I think both teams are going to be very intriguing this year in the positions that they're in their divisions. In the AFC East, you obviously look at Miami. That has gotten better with Tyreek Hill. They don't have a quarterback. I'm sorry, Tua is not the quarterback of the future for that organization. I believe they'll be looking for a new quarterback next year. Josh Allen and what he's done with Buffalo, they're losing Daboll. Losing Daboll is a significant loss. I really do believe we're going to see the growth of Josh Allen as a player that we didn't see last year now that Daboll is gone. And then obviously the New England Patriots are very, very dangerous, as they always are, with Mac Jones, a second year, and obviously Bill Belichick and the weapons that they have. They added Parker in the offseason and some of the running backs that they added in the drafts. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this AFC East is going to fall. Are the Jets the second best team in this division? I would say not. I would say the Jets could be the third best team in this division this year. I think they're a year away from being that dominant force where everybody's going to be afraid to playing the Jets. But I think they're going to make a lot of noise this year if Zach Wilson really takes that next step. Same thing with the Giants. I think Daniel Jones is the guy. I think Daniel Jones needs to prove himself, and I think that's why they brought Daboll in, because he fixed Josh Allen. Maybe he fixed Daniel Jones for the better.